Welcome to the Alpine Church of Spiritual Living on this Halloween, October 31st. I'm dressed in my costume, see me? I'm playing the part of a minister. And so I'm going to read the thought for the week this morning that we wrote earlier in the week. Oh, don't go away. As we wrap up our theme for the month, bringing in the harvest, I am reminded of the bounty of God's grace ever before us. Everywhere we look in nature, we see abundance and overflowing. Everything that God has made has been done with plenty and more than enough. The omnipresence of the infinite knows nothing of lack or limitation. As we draw close to this presence and allow to be fed by its living waters, we find God's grace in all our sufficiency. God is the source of everything we have need of. But if it takes bringing our conscious connection to this God presence within in order to reap its rewards. It takes bringing our priorities in alignment with what is real and true. Jesus the Christ told us, "It is done unto you as you believe." Do you believe in scarcity or sufficiency? Do you believe with God all things are possible? There really are no limitations to what God can do for and through us. This coming week, place your priorities on your source. That's with a capital S. Commune with the One, capital O, listening to the whispers of the still small voice within you. Be willing to step outside your comfort zone to accept the overflowing abundance of ideas that can come flooding through your mind and heart. Be willing then to take action to distribute the many gifts of divine substance in which you live, move, and have your being. Say with me, listen with me. I now willingly and joyfully, with great expectation, open my mind and heart to receive the abundance of God's grace flowing through my life this very moment. There is more than enough to do, have, and be all that I desire. Life is full to overflowing with goodness and love. For this, I am ever so grateful. Thank you, Vicki, for your phone to read that. I forgot to make the program. Okay, so our theme, today's topic is entitled Pressed Down, Flowing Over. And it's based on the monthly theme that we have had, which is bringing in the harvest. Because I wanted to emphasize that this creation that we are among, that we are living in and of and as, is abundant, is infinite, is unlimited. And so I wanted to just go over a little review of the messages that I've shared previously in this month of October. The first week we talked about what we have sown, or what we have planted, we will surely reap. That every moment, it would behoove us to be mindful of what we are thinking, what we are expecting, because that is being put into the law of nature. And it is listening to us all the time, willing and able to fulfill our requests. So we want to be mindful for what it is we are requesting. The second Sunday was I Can Do All Things, and that is centered in the realization and the recognition that there is a Christ consciousness within me that is giving me the strength, the wherewithal, the ability to do whatever it is that I have to do in front of me. The third Sunday was the cycle of life, and we talked about that life is cyclical. It has beginnings, it has endings, but in reality there is one life that is living and never ends. It changes the way it looks. It allows itself to be morphed and to come and go in a vision type of thing, but the substance of life is always there, changeless. Never goes away. And then last Sunday we talked about many hearts and many hands. And so in order to reap the harvest that we are planting, I believe that we need to recognize that we are all one, that there is one family, one human family here, and that we want to open ourselves up, open our minds up to recognize that there is no differentiation, there is no separation between me and anyone else, anything else. We are all one. So as you know, or maybe some of you don't, but I went to Unity Village this last week near Kansas City, Missouri, for the Affiliated New Thought Network Conference. It's a conference that is the umbrella, so to speak, of our church. We're an independent religious science church, and the abbreviation for Affiliated New Thought Network is ANTON. I've been going to their annual conferences for 21 years now. And they've been held at Unity Village for the last 4 or 5 years. It's a wonderful campus. Anybody here ever been there? Okay, one other Unity student there in the past. It's absolutely, I will highly recommend, if you please, in your plans, travel somehow or another, if you could get to Unity Village at any time, take advantage of it. It's a beautiful facility. It's got a first-rate hotel, dining, conferences. It's got a prayer tower, amazing facility. And so I'd highly recommend getting to Unity Village if you can, and going to the conference with me next year if you can. So as I was thinking about what to speak about today, I want to share with you some of the highlights of this trip that I just came back from, because it is so soul-filling that I just want to share with this. And I appreciate you all sending me as well. You know, you send me, pay for the way and all that. So I like to share with you what some of the gems are that I received from it. And number one, it does absolutely fits into our topic today, because it is an abundance that's overflowing there. Everybody, talks about just putting your foot on campus and just feeling the energy. Feeling this positive, loving energy of the Fillmores, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, who built this facility back in the early 1900s. And so I'm going to go down to some of the highlights that comes to me. They had a panel initially of ministers, and there was a Unity minister there. I'd never met her before, Kathy Englehart. She's from Ohio. I think it's Cincinnati, Ohio. She has a pretty big Unity church there. And the question was, what do you see the differences in your ministry? Because a lot of these are ministers that are there, but you don't have to be a minister to come. But the panel was all ministers. And what do you see the differences that happened in 2020 in your ministry? Getting the change with the pandemic and everything. And Kathy's quote, which I'm sure you've probably heard before, but it really resonated with me. She said, this is one of my favorite quotes. God bless the flexible, for we don't get bent out of shape. Yeah. And that's what we've been doing. All of us have been doing that in 2020, bless the flexible, for we don't get bent out of shape. They were asked, one other question was asked, to share what are some of their favorite books. We have 2 book studies going, so this is a good list that I was writing down feverishly what they were saying. The Book of Joy was one of them. I think I see a head nodding. Somebody else has already recommended that to us. You're a Bad Ass. It was a recommended book. Any of John Randolph Price's books. Wallace D. Waddell's book, The Science of Getting Rich, especially chapter 7 on gratitude. Hicks' books, Ask and It Is Given. Michael Singer's books, we know about those. Helen Hamilton's books, not sure who Helen Hamilton is. Edgar Casey's bio, and another one that I'm unaware of, the Sophia Code. So those are just some things to take note of, be aware of, that these ministers thought that those were really highly recommended books. Janine Burns, Dr. Janine Burns, she's from Long Island, and just a fabulous gal, has been in New Thought her whole life, has been a minister since she was in her teens, early 20s, and has always done very different things with her ministry. She had a pulpit ministry at one point, but then she has I don't know if it's still up, but she had a website at one point where she was bringing people in and interviewing them, and it was called Spirituality Rocks. And now she's a chaplain for hospice and transitional in the transition type of things that happen in life. So, but she talked about this energy medicine called havening. Havening. Has anybody ever heard of that? Havening techniques. I'd never heard of it. But she says that it utilizes touch to create the delta waves in the brain to heal and remove negative impacts and to place positive impacts in your psyche. So I'm going to show you what they're very simple. So it's all about touch. So you take your hands and you just rub them like you're washing your hand. You just wash your hand. The second, there's only 3 of them. The second technique is you pretend like you're washing your face. And you take your hand and you rub it on your face, around your cheeks and chin. So you're washing your face. And the third technique is you pretend like you're hugging yourself, but you take your hands up at the top and then you just brush downward, not upward, downward on your arms. And she was saying how that, you can do this technique if you're talking to somebody, you can rub your hands together, and nobody's going to think anything of it. So you can do this inconspicuously, throughout the day. And then she says the havening that she recommends is like before you go to bed, you can do these affirmations. I choose to be safe. I choose to be peaceful. I choose to be calm. And so it helps with your affirmations to deep seat them into your body. Now, she did an example. She brought a client up because I guess you have to go through this quite a bit of extensive training to become a practitioner of this type of element. It's somewhat similar if you've ever done tapping. You know what tapping is? It's along that line. But she had an example of a gal that came up and asked her, well, do you have some issue in your life, some challenge, something that bugs you? And so she shared with everybody, yeah, I have this situation. I don't like it. I get frustrated by it every time it happens. And so Janine just started asking her to just close her eyes and just start havening. And she asked her, what are your favorite hobbies? And so she talked about her hobbies, and she talked about, she likes gardening, so what kind of plants do you grow, and blah, blah, blah. She said it started the whole process with, from 1 to 10, how frustrated are you when this situation happens? She said it's a 10. In a matter of about 20 minutes of her questioning this gal and giving her just these things to think about that were not the frustration, but something that she likes, she'd stop and she'd go, okay, now it was a 10. How do you feel now about that situation? Oh, I think I'm at an 8. She's continued to question her, and literally in 20 minutes, she got down to a 0. And evidently what she's saying is that this is a permanent, this stays. It's not a temporary thing because you're changing your brain waves about the situation. So I thought that was really interesting too, and you might want to check that out more, havening techniques. And you can look online, I guess, and get a practitioner because you really need somebody that knows what they're doing if you have an issue that's really bothering you, to have them help you. Bill Marcioni is a minister in Philly, and he has a meetup group that he has over 600 people on his meetup group. Well, that was one of the things they talked about, technology being very much more utilized now, in our processes. And his social media group is called Philly Spiritual Adventures. And he engages people with activity. He deals a lot with youth. His ministry is a lot with the homeless and with younger people. So he had us go around, we had to go around in a big circle in the room. There were 47 people in the room, and everybody got a playing card, a deck of cards. And you just picked one out of the stack and passed it all the way around. And then he said, okay, in a deck of cards, there are 2 cards that match. Like, in other words, there's 2 black 5s. Like there's a 5 of, or 2 black, or 2 red cards that match, right? So I had the ace of spades. He said that what we're going to do is you need to find your match in the room. So my match was the ace of clubs. That makes sense, you know? So if you had a 5 of diamonds, you're looking for the 5 of hearts, right? And so he said, just walk around, find your match, and that is your perfect match, and you have 5 minutes or however it was to engage with each other. Well, I'm walking around the room. I'm looking for the ace of clubs, Can't find. Everybody else is matching up. Oh, look at you. Can't find mine. And finally, I looked over, and I see this person standing there with the ace of clubs. I had the ace of spades. She had the ace of clubs. She's standing looking at, and she has the aces of clubs. I went, oh my gosh. It was Marcy Baruch, my roommate.
Awesome.
You know, okay, I guess we're partners here, aren't we? But some people, and that happened with several other people, they literally had their closest friend that they came with be their match. And it was all just random. Not random. It was showing how spirit connects us. But some people, if they didn't know each other, found that they had a common denominator, that there was something that both of them had in common that they hadn't realized before. So that was really kind of fun. Jerry Troyer, our local minister here that's at Ohm Center in La Mesa, gave a workshop called Being at Home in the Muddy Waters. And home is defined as, what do you think of when you think of home? Something safe, comfortable, you can be yourself. Mud, the mud is change, crisis, sense of loss. And so Jerry had his partner of 33 years literally make his transition at the Anton Conference in 2019. It was very much something that, well, we knew that he he was dealing with cancer, but Jerry, there were 2 Jerrys. His partner was Jerry and his name is Jerry, so maybe confusing, but Jerry had been sick, but he wanted to come to the Anton Conference, and they had to leave because he just couldn't deal with it, and literally he made his transition, I think in the Houston airport or something, after they left the building. But so it's basically focused on grief is what this workshop's all about. And I was so grateful that the county that we were in mandates that you wear a mask indoors, because we were all masked. You had to wear a mask all through the whole thing. And of course, with being around grief, with the passing of our son last month, unexpectedly, I just, of course, was a mess. I was bawling all over the place, and I was grateful that I had a mask on. I said that to Michelle Whittington, one of the other ministers who lost her husband. He made his transition a couple of years ago, and I said, yeah, I'm grateful I had that mask on. She says, yeah, but it gets all snotty. So it was a great workshop, and Jerry told me that he will be, he's willing to come to our church and give that workshop for a very reasonable price. We have an auction at the end of this event. It's a banquet, beautiful food, by the way. The food was fantastic. A banquet and then auction. And Jerry auctioned himself off to go to whoever bid the highest. He'd go to their church and give his workshop. It's amazing. The thing about Anton is the connection with the people. One of the ministers that was there is from what we call CSL, Center for Spiritual Living. It's another entity of religious science. It's kind of a bigger one. I won't name names, but she said that this was her first Anton conference, and she goes to the other conferences all the time. And she just said, oh my gosh, I can't believe the difference in the energy here versus the energy in the other one, you know? She said, this is just so welcoming, so loving, so connective. And it is very true, and that's one of the main reasons why I go, is the connection. So after Jerry's workshop, it was lunch, and we had to walk from the conference room to lunch. And beautiful grounds, you got concrete walkways, and if there's landscaping, there's some bark, next to it and whatnot. I was walking by myself. I just gone to this workshop, and I still had my mask on. Walking down the sidewalk, and I went to remove a tear from my eye, and my contact lens popped out. Yeah. I'm by myself, and I'm, okay, great. Maybe it just fell right into my mask. I tried to look at my mask, tried to look on my body, where I can't find it. People stop, what are you looking for? My contact. And it's a hard contact lens, so it's tinted a little bit blue. And so I'm looking on the concrete, the white concrete, maybe it's just right here. Can't find it. Fine, whatever. I guess I need a new contact. I go inside, have lunch. I'm at lunch, and we had round tables. Michael Benjamin was one of the fellows who I've known him for a while. In fact, his son transitioned 2 years ago, and his mother transitioned last year. So we were talking about the workshop because we had just come from it. I had told them that I had just dropped my contact, and his response was, I'm Eagle Eye. They call me Eagle Eye. So when we left from lunch, he goes, I'm going to follow you, Reverend Gay, so I can see where you lost it. Okay. So I told him, this is right here, it's where I was. And then another gal came by who has the same kind of lenses I do. It's gas permeable, they're hard lenses. I asked my eye doctor, how long are they going to keep making these? Because they're not soft lenses, they're gas permeable. And he says, as long as the baby boomers demand it. So Janine was the one. Janine says, now recognize that the wind is blowing. So I would suggest that you look over there. The wind was blowing that direction. Look over there. She's talking about the bark. All that bark. And leaves were in it. And oh my God, the leaves, the trees there were amazing. Oh my gosh, crimson red. One tree was half green and half red. We don't get that in San Diego. I mean, it was, woohoo, well, you're really cool. So anyway, Michael gets down on his knees, and he's looking in the bark, and I'm like, okay. Great. Sure. Go for it, Michael. I go back to my room. 10 minutes later, knock, knock, knock. Open the door. Contact lens delivery. He had it on his finger. I'm like, how did you do that? He said, I called in my mom. I asked my mom to help me find it. And he did. She did, and he did, and I mean, to me, that was a miracle to find that little tiny contact lens in that bark. I was so grateful because, when you look with one eye that's good and the other eye's all fuzzy, it doesn't work very well. So that was a fun thing that happened. So our musicians this year, I'd never heard them. Melissa Philippe, and they call themselves Melissa and Z. And they're married. I think they've been married for 7-8 years, 2 gals. And Melissa has this gorgeous voice. And Z, she calls herself, how did she call herself? A nerd, basically. She's a very interesting looking woman. And but she's hysterical. She's got this comic about her, anyway. So I bought 4 of their CDs, like I told you, and we're going to be hearing more of her music. But they did a workshop on Oh My God. That's the name of their website, ohmygodlife.com. You go on there and sign up, just your first name, your date of birth, and they'll send you a personalized birthday wish on your birthday every year. They're just so full of energy. I mean, they were just so much fun. And so they had this practice, Oh My God practice. And it's a process to where if you're having some sort of challenge in your life, they didn't call it a challenge, they called it a project. We have a project that we need to work on. And so the first one, that she gave an example from herself, from her own self. She had issues, she had been married, She got a divorce, but she had counted on her husband for all of her finances. So she never had to worry about money. Okay, now she needed help with her finances. And so you're supposed to think of 3 things that you are grateful for in relationship to this project. In other words, I'm grateful, she came up, for example, I'm grateful that I now have the opportunity to budget. Just trying to think outside the box. Don't think about the issue itself, but at the end result, what am I grateful for? When I have overcome this, what am I grateful for? And the thing was, you have to come up with your own saying. Their saying is, once you've completed this process of going through it, she says, you get yourself in the feeling of, oh my God, this is better than I ever could have imagined. Like if your finances are set, you've gone through that process, oh my God, this is greater than I could ever have imagined. It's beyond my wildest dreams. You get that feeling, okay? So her second thing that she came up with was she had the opportunity to believe truth. They're both ministers. They've been ministers for quite a while in religious science. Had the opportunity to believe your truth. And third was that she recognizes that I am worth having good. So those were her takeaways. Those were what she was grateful for when this project is completed. Well, they came to the conference in a van. I overheard them talking about, it was a travel van. Well, I've been thinking about wanting to get a travel van, and so I saw this van out in the parking lot, and it's beautiful, and it looks like just the right size. And so we were in between sessions, and we were out on I think the same walkway that I dropped my contact lens or popped it out. And they were standing there. And so I went up to him. I said, is that your van over there that you came in? Oh, yes. I said, well, it looks really nice. What do you think of it? Oh, my gosh, we just love it. She said, we just got it. We had to order it special, brand new. Came from Canada. We had to wait 9 months for it. It's a Mercedes, and it's called Unity. Thought that was pretty interesting. It's a Unity model of a Mercedes van. And get this, she said, oh, we just were so blessed because we got a very substantial donation so that we were able to purchase it straight away. Full price, we were able just to pay for it. Well, I mean, I think those things, they're probably approaching 100K. I don't know, but I mean, more than that. Yeah. And she said, we received a donation, a generous donation to where we could just buy it. Woo! So obviously they've worked on their prosperity consciousness pretty well. So I would recommend that you go to their website, ohmygodlife.com. Check it out and see if you can get some worth from their input. We have a talent show, and oh my gosh, this Z-gal, they were supposed to be doing something with a song at the talent show, and the audio wasn't coming up. So to fill some time, because we were waiting, she goes, I have a joke, let me say a joke. There's no way I could do it justice. But she got up there, and she's a narrow person. She's very thin, just long face. And she goes, I'll try to do it. She goes, this whale walks into a bar. And the whale sits down, and he says, she must have gone on, it's supposed to be whale sounds, right? She's gone on like that for 5 or 10, it was hysterical. I mean, she did it much better than I did. I don't know what I look like, for God's sake. But it was hysterical. And then she stopped, and then the guy next to him turns and says, oh my God, are you wasted? Anyway. Mark Anthony Lord. Anybody heard of Mark Anthony Lord? He was a Unity minister in Ohio, somewhere in the middle of the country. He was a keynote speaker, and he was one of the ones that everybody really highlighted. Everybody talked about how great he was. And he quoted Emma Curtis Hopkins' 5 universal denials. There is no evil in you. Might be in the world, but there's no evil in you. There is no matter. Spirit is real. Everything else is made up. There is no absence in you. You are lacking nothing. There is no hate in you. Anything that rises up is to be healed. And there is no sickness, sin, or death. A lot of those ideas are hard for some of us to accept. But that's the truth, the core truth of what Emma Curtis Hopkins teaches. And he talked about Joel Goldsmith. Hello, we know Joel Goldsmith here, right? He says a lot of people like to read Joel Goldsmith, but they don't want to be him because he is non-negotiable. Very similar to what Emma Curtis Hopkins is talking about. So he suggested that we go to our core and we don't sit with illusion. We practice asking our higher self with one voice, the Holy Spirit, and let it guide us. He has a free event on November 15th through the 18th. He is hosting online. It's called Manifest Awakening. The website is livingthecourse.com/Manifest Awakening. We heard from Paul Selig. Anybody know Paul Selig? I had not heard of him. He's a channeler. And he came via means of video. And it was very interesting because he's closing his eyes and he's saying something, but it's almost like a mutter. You can't really understand it because it's really fast. And then he repeats it in a slower voice and a louder voice so that you hear it. But his whole presentation was like that. And so to me, it was a little confusing, but he had some really good truths in there. Some of them were, these key points were, I am free, I am in the upper room, I have come, God is, behold, I make all things new. I could go on and on, guys, but I know I'm taking a lot longer than I normally do. But I want you to recognize that these conferences are there available to you. And I think if you go online today, literally you get the best, lowest price that you can for next year's conference. And I don't remember what it is. It's $350 or something like that. But I highly recommend that you think about it. I mean, they'll have more time that you can sign up for, obviously. And so I want you to recognize that we are in this life of abundance, that it is overflowing, that is infinite, it is unlimited. And when we place ourselves in this flow, things will come to us that we don't expect. But we need to align ourselves with it. We need to think about the truth and the reality versus the illusion, versus what we see out here that's changeable. We need to go back into our core and be seated in the strength and in the wisdom and in the love that we are, and let it flow through us. Let this Holy Spirit guide us to our good that it wants us to experience, that it wants to experience through us. So be open. Be open to change. Be open to allowing, to bringing in the harvest that you are planting today and every moment. This is the moment that life is waiting for you to see its reality, to accept its reality, and to be it. So I hope that some of you will join me next year at the conference. It's going to be at the end of September, I think the 24th or something like that. It will be a beautiful time of year in Kansas City. Bringing in your harvest, reaping your good is what life is about. Have a fabulous, fabulous coming week. and be happy. Love you.